Hey guys, and welcome back. I have a ton of updates for you guys on the SJM Han Rivergate case. The main recent update is that SJM's father is looking for witnesses that have not come forward, and he is trying to get essentially a second opinion to what the police have reported. And he's also cross-checking the witnesses that did. He's trying to see if the police accurately or basically told the truth in their mid-investigation police report. Remember, we don't even have a final report. Does this mean like the police haven't even turned in their final assignment? Like, who's checking up on the homework on the police department? Okay, so over the past couple of weeks, there have been little updates, and I thought that they weren't big enough to do a separate video on each one. But now, as a whole, as pieced together, it's becoming a big meal. SJM's father is not playing with this. He is asking for people who were there at the park to call him. I'm going to put the number on the screen and the email address that he has posted on his blog. If you were at the park that night, just kind of like Crime Busters or something, if you were there, contact him because he is cross-checking the police's work. He's already done it for one witness, and it already looks like he has exposed how the police has already misrepresented themselves on their mid-investigation police report. Let's start with this half-butt apology by Hot Daddy's show on SBS. So remember, they were at the media arbitration panel to go over their really faulty, false reporting of the events that happened. First of all, this topic should not have even made it onto this show. It was way too early. It was way too fresh. This is not even a cold case. This is not even, it shouldn't have even made it into a press release that went into the producer's office. So already that was a little bit fishy, but they did this show anyway. They did a reenactment that completely misrepresented the case, but the biggest travesty that they made it look like everything was wrapped up, and also they reinforced what the police have already tried to posit, that the investigation has been wrapped up. And so what the Media Arbitration Board did was they sided with SJM's father in saying that, well, at least this show must make a statement on its broadcast in the following manner. So it was basically like a sorry not sorry. It's sort of like the bully was forced to apologize when they didn't want to apologize, and the way that they apologized was not even an apology. So I'll read you the translation of it. And it was basically read in Hot Daddy's voice in Korean. And it was so not genuine in his tone. In regards to our prior broadcast on May 29th on the missing college student at the Han River Park, the parents of the deceased college student have stated, "We have filed charges against Mr. A, which means the investigation is still ongoing. Whether it was an accidental crime or abandonment or any number of other possibilities, the details of his drowning and cause of death have not been properly revealed. This update was made in accordance with the Media Arbitration Board." So there is no apology whatsoever. It basically just said that, well, the parents claim this, that the investigation is not over in regards to our broadcast on May 29th regarding this topic. And we just said this because the Media Arbitration Board told us to do so. And that's it. And so SJM's father said, like, look, okay, so that was the battle. That's essentially the battle. That's as far as we're going to go with there. Otherwise, it was just going to be taking us way off course, and it's going to create so much work. We have to win the war. So I think that's pretty smart. He was able to do that. But he did make a statement that I really want to also kind of amplify. He said that what was scary about this whole process was when he had to go through this and had to explain over and over and over to even people who were kind of on his side. Everyone had that idea because of this show. Because of this show. People were saying like, yeah, but isn't it over? Yeah, but hasn't the police concluded everything? We saw it on TV. And he said that once it gets out into the public that something has been finalized, once you have control of the narrative that something is over, it is so hard to overturn that in somebody's mind. So this media play, this way of taking this strategy was extremely smart. Oh, yes, it was. Was it exactly the right thing to do if you were perhaps on that side? Oh, yes, it was. Absolutely. But that is the power of that. Absolutely it was. And so he basically said that while he was at one of the memorials for SJM. Next, where is the petition now? So after the 100,000 signature mark at the National Assembly, so hooray once again, thank you to all of you who have signed that. So essentially that petition, I believe, has closed, so you can't sign it. Even if you are here in Korea and you want to add more to it, you cannot. But the change.org petition is still open and you can sign it from anywhere around the world. You can still add your voices there. I'll put a link in the description box. So the National Assembly sent the petition to the Legislation and Judiciary Committee. And within that entity, it's going to be linked to the Public Administration and Security Committee. So that was the paperwork that SJM's father put on his blog to update us on where it is in the process, in the pipeline. And he says that it's going to take weeks or months, but we should really monitor it. But if any of you have insights or ins, and especially if you are one of those 보좌관, if you are one of the people who work in the National Assembly and can give us some insights on how this works, like if you're like a legislative aide, those are the, you are the people who know how all this, the wheels get greased over there. Please clue us in, because I'm sure this is another Squid Game over there. We need to know who 001 is. Please let us know, because we have to really start now, if not yesterday, on, making sure we know what the next game is. Next update, SJM's dad threw more shade on Mr. A and his dance skills. Remember the dance video? Well, actually, though, he was making a forensic point, 2 forensic points on a timestamp of 1:51 a.m. on the video recording on his son's phone. So that famous dancing video of Mr. A, well, SJM's dad says there's no one around, unfortunately. So you could already see at this point in time, he's beginning to think of, are there any witnesses that perhaps I can identify? So you can already get a sense that he's beginning to have the wheel spinning in his mind, that he's looking for witnesses. He's unfortunately thinking, oh, there's no witnesses here yet. But he's also making a point that, look at his shirt, look at his shoes, they're in pristine condition. And he's reminding us again at 4 4:32 when Mr. A exits the bunny tunnel. What is up with his shoes? What is up with his shirt? How did it get so raggedy in 3 hours when he's just like on the lawn, at a park? He wasn't like helping somebody move. He wasn't, where was he? Like, he was in nature. He was supposed to be sleeping, right? So, that's a really hard sleeper if that's how your shoes end up. Really? Who then did go into the river then? Maybe he's asleep. Maybe he's the sleepwalker. Maybe he was the one who thought it was refreshing. Because that shirt, those shoes, like SJM's father said, do not look the same from 1:50 a.m. and 4:32 a.m. So he's making that point, but he did it real shady. He basically said that there are some clues, but only one person knows the truth, but he claims he's blacked out. He says he can't even stand looking at him now. He says after 2 a.m., he says the next recorded witness reports that SJM slumped over and fell asleep. He is scared of contemplating what happened after 2 a.m., but he has to continue to soldier forth and go through all of the facts because he says that it just continues to uncover the next lie. He actually used the word lie, ... So that's kind of like the Korean way of I'm not going to say anymore. But the fact that he actually used the word lie is a big thing because the step right before lie in Korean is I don't know why somebody would say that, or I don't know why that is. So when you hear a lot of Korean people say like I don't know something, most of the time, I would say like 90% of the time, please do not think that they just don't know. They're essentially trying to say like, look, somebody's lying. Look, there's some BS here, but I can't say it. I don't know why. So, but they're not going to say it all sassy like this, like, the way I'm doing it. They're basically, you're going to actually think that they might not know why. And I always got mad. I was like, can you please put a touch of sass in there so that we know that you really know and you're trying to say that somebody is lying? But, okay, at least he said, he's lying. And in this post, he included a picture of a memorial service that he went to where it was very beautiful. They released these balloons up into the air, and he said that SJM, even Winnie the Pooh liked balloons, so why don't you grab one up in heaven? Oh, yeah. All right, so now we're at the most recent update where SJM's father is looking for witnesses and he is going through a scientific-based reinvestigation of the witnesses' accounts. So I think what he's trying to do is set up what the police claim the witnesses have said. He has already compared it to what he has found out from one of the key witnesses and how it does not 100% match up to what the police put in their report. And I think what he's going to do is add more witness accounts to crack the police's own report and make it look like instead of an A+ term paper, like a midterm because it's not even the final, and make it look like a D- effort. But he spilled the tea, major tea, just kind of like as a side note about the mid-investigation police report. It's like it came straight out of a K-drama. Remember when they announced this mid-investigation police report? Well, after being ghosted for weeks by the police department, the day that they held that big press conference for this mid-investigation police report, the police department invited SJM's father and his wife and his family to come down to the police department to look at CCTV footage. Remember when he said that they made me come to the police department to look at it in person and spend hours looking at CCTV footage? Well, they did that at the exact same time as the press conference so that he couldn't attend the press conference, to basically be like a media draw so that he couldn't interfere with the results and the position of what the police will say, and he couldn't immediately rebut what the police had said, straight out of a K-drama, basically to shut his mouth and keep him out of the picture. How sneaky was that? And he had only revealed that just a couple of weeks ago, and he said that at the time he had no clue that he was being so majorly played by the police. And then after connecting all the dots and then seeing that the lawyer for Mr. A had come out of the police department, he has concluded now that, if you get in trouble, do not depend on the police. Get yourself a lawyer who used to be in the police. That's how you win. So, he's being a practical guy who, plays the system here in Korea. So that is essentially, if you want to have a tip on how you do it in Korea, that's why you look at the CV or resume of people and their experience. You look at what their path was going to their current job, because then they can call upon their old friends and network to do the special favors and to kind of get in there and do things. Not only that, when he was at the police station looking at the CCTV footage, they had already known about the 3:31 a.m. CCTV footage theory of the fall, and also the red blood spots all around, and had taken samples, but that had not even made it into the mid-investigation police report. And then later on, there was some answers, when they were asked about it, they said, oh, it was nothing conclusive, and even if it might be blood, it's probably just cat blood. Yeah, that's why I think we need to see the luminol test. Okay, so who was the witness that SJM's father closely contacted that begins to put a lot of doubt on the mid-investigation police report? It's the guy who was with another girl who took the 2:18 a.m. slumped over picture of SJM. We have more details about his account, and we have another picture of him. And it's really shady. So essentially, he had been walking by, and at 2:10 a.m., he saw Mr. A acting really, in his words, kind of gross and shady. So in a nutshell, this witness seems to think that Mr. A was mounted on top of SJM and had his hands in SJM's pockets, digging through it. And he thought that it was so weird enough where he stopped his walking and sat on a bench and just sat there. And sat there until 2:50. That's 40 minutes. He sat there for 40 minutes watching Mr. A and an unconscious SJM. So 8 minutes passed, right? And that's when he took that picture. Before then, he saw this sort of like maybe dry hump action, who knows, like some sort of action, because there is subtext of that nature, because he told SJM's father that at first he thought it was people of the opposite sex, so that he felt a little bit embarrassed looking at that situation, like it was kind of like, PDA get a room, like, people. And then he realized that it was two guys, and that made him feel flustered and taken aback, like he was uncomfortable at seeing like a same-sex situation. So the subtext there is that he was monitoring some sort of kind of, that kind of behavior. Now, SJM's father's emphasis though here is that the videos that they were kind of taking about, like where they were dancing and running around, ended at 1:56 a.m. This witness said that SJM was slumped over at 2:10 a.m. So in the span of 14 minutes, he had gone from awake and just filming to then unconscious. He could have been unconscious even before then, but at least in 14 minutes, he had gone from awake to just unconscious, and looks like he had never woken up after that. And so he is also implying now, it may even be going towards, some of the other theories, like people are just like, something happened where it does not seem normal, where somebody can be so unconscious so quickly just from alcohol. Now we have even more information about the posture of how SJM ended up in that 2:18 photo. That was not SJM's doing. So what had happened is that between 2:10 a.m. after, he had been mounted by Mr. A had tried to grab both of SJM's arms and even his waist and lift him up and wake him up. It didn't work. So then he slumped back down, and so that's how his body ended up back in that position. So that position, it had been almost like choreographed by Mr. A. So it wasn't a natural position that SJM had fallen asleep under. So some people in the message board earlier on said that, well, that seems kind of like a natural position where if you're a little bit cold on a chilly night, you kind of sleep like that. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of fair. Even though like, I thought like, gosh, he looks a little bit too lifeless for somebody drunk. And then other people were like, yeah, but I've kind of slept like that before when I was drunk, kind of like that. But that was not the posture that SJM had naturally fallen into. That was the way after Mr. A had manipulated his body to try to lift him up, to wake him up, and then he put him back down to sleep. And so that is also pivotal information that goes to show again that this is not a normal unconsciousness for SJM. This is the shadiest part of the mid-investigation police report, because the mid-investigation police report said that this witness who took the picture was only there from 2:10 to 2:18. 2:10 to 2:18. When he was there from 2:10 to 2:50, he was there for not 8 minutes, but 40 minutes. And during this time, he said that he saw Mr. A like pace kind of like back and forth, like trying to decide, like, should I leave? Should I ditch the guy? Or should I stay? And so he would kind of like lay down with him. And then he was like, no, maybe I should leave. And then he's like crouching, as we saw in the picture, like on his phone. So it really looked like he was panicking. He's like, didn't know what to do. Should I ditch the guy? Should I stay with him? Should I pretend he's sleeping? So it did look like Mr. A had a dilemma here. He did not know what to do. And so SJM's father, in his blog, and all of his blog entries are letters to his son. So he's basically saying like, wow, if he had only really then just ditched you, you would still be alive, because you probably would have just been almost like unconscious, but maybe somewhat like in a coma or something. And then by the next day, maybe medical personnel could have found you and taken you to the emergency room. And unfortunately, Mr. A, I guess we see now, decided to stay and do something. SJM's father also asks, in that photo at 2:18 a.m., whose phone was it? And what was Mr. A looking at? He also reminds us that miraculously, it looks like already everything had been tidied up. Where is the food? Where are the drinks? It looks like the mat is the only thing left. And then basically he threw some more shade, saying like, well, it looks like Mr. A had finally had his fill and his fun after dancing around and drinking after calling you out because he wasn't satisfied with his last drinking appointment. But look at you, just slumped over. So the reason why most likely this witness on the police report had been limited to 2:10 to 2:18 a.m. was that originally, so there's this theory that Mr. A was trying to make an alibi that gave him even more time. Remember how he had himself told the family that he dragged SJM up from the riverbank before 3 a.m. Before 3 a.m. And he was trying to basically get everything kind of taken care of before 3 a.m. And originally they were trying to make him have an account that he had gone home before 3:30. But he got caught in that 3:37 a.m. photo and the 3:37 a.m. phone call. Because remember, originally, they had never, ever mentioned the 3:37 a.m. phone call to his parents when he was talking to his parents on the grassy knoll. They never mentioned it. And when they had been asked about it, they said, oh, we forgot. But that was the phone call when they had been asked about it, when the mom went nuts. She had went cold and shut down, and then she resurrected and went nuts. And so that was the phone call that probably was where So basically they're trying to erase the 3:31 a.m. where SJM went over the riverbank and Mr. A allegedly went to follow him, and then a few minutes later, only one person went back up, and we saw Mr. A on the phone. So that original plan to try to tidy everything up before 3 a.m. and then have him leave, it all got messed up by somebody taking a picture of the moon and catching Mr. A in the act, the phone call, and then also the CCTV of the bunny tunnel showing him leave like at 4:32 a.m. And so they had to revise all the timelines. Oh, and then also people saying that, oh, we saw SJM asleep until 3 a.m. So that will conflict with anything about like him being dragged back up because he was already asleep. So you can't be dragged back up if you never went down. So they had to revise this timeline. And so this is a problem in some of these areas where you have some of these ghost elements of the original storyline. And we saw another element of that in the reenactment in the timestamp of the SBS documentary, where they got the timestamp wrong of Mr. A exiting the bunny tunnel. They were off by 5 minutes. They were correct by 5 minutes from the original timestamp of when he woke up at 4:20 a.m. So 4:20 a.m. he's supposed to have woken up according to the original timestamp that they had reported, and then 5 minutes later he was supposed to walk out. That's what they did in the reenactment. But then they had to revise it, I believe, because of the fisherman's account of the oh so refreshing, to give more time for that theory to work. So, and then also for the CCTV camera to account for the actual footage of Mr. A leaving at 4:32. So then they said that, oh, he had woken up at 4:27. So then 5 minutes later, that was the real time. So you see some of these ghost elements of the original storyline getting stuck in the manufactured areas. So SJM's father is particularly interested in Witness E. He calls this person Witness E. So Witness E, could you please stand up? And he's also particularly interested in Witness G, the group of 4 girls that are like totally into their cell phones, that are like lighting up their faces right behind the 218 slumped over picture. We need these people. So he is very interested in those groups to try to give more of a story of what they saw. So this is the timeline that is in the police report that SJM's father is reminding us of. 2 a.m., both are asleep on the mat. 2:10 a.m., Mr. A tries to shake SJM awake, then mounts him and does something to him in his pockets. 2:18 a.m., a witness takes a picture of Mr. A packed and kneeling next to SJM. 2:50 a.m., Mr. A lies next to SJM after looking like he was going home. 3 a.m., Mr. A goes to the river to throw up and returns to the mat to sleep. SJM's back looks wet. 3:15 a.m. to 3:30 a.m., Mr. A tries to slap SJM on the cheeks to wake him up. 3:37 a.m., Mr. A calls his parents saying SJM is too drunk to wake up. 3:30 a.m. to 3:40 a.m., Mr. A was near the picnic mat, curled up on the side of the riverbank. 4:04 a.m. to 4:06 a.m., there's a black figure that looks like a person underneath the right tree. Remember where that duck was? I think that was around there. 4:27 a.m., Mr. A gets woken up by a good Samaritan who thought it'd be dangerous for Mr. A to sleep on the riverbank. Mr. A heads home. So this is what is in the police report, according to the eyewitnesses that they did allow to say something for the official account. So what is glaringly missing is 3:31 a.m., where we're seeing from originally that CCTV account of the fall. We need witnesses for that. And we have witnesses for that in the CCTV. Hello, the witnesses that the Seoulite would like to call to the table? The two guys, and I think they're guys, the two guys that were just chit-chatting on the grass that then started to see like, oh wait, something just did not look right. And then they went over and they looked over the riverbank, and then they got freaked out. And remember, one of them totally ran, and then one of them like did like a power walk. because they were freaked out. We need those witnesses. We need to find some sort of incentive to bring them to the table, because those are the witnesses that will bring a hallelujah. All right, guys, what do you think? We are like so close, yet still so far. But those are the latest updates, and hopefully we can get some sort of other inside information on how the National Assembly process is going to work, because in conjunction with SJM's father's efforts, I think we can get a lot more information, and I think it is a very smart strategy that SJM's father is working to debunk the mid-investigation police report. And hey, it's the police's fault that they only have one report that they issued. All right, guys, we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.